today is a very special day for the episode, for the whole podcast, for Byte Ventures as a channel. We have Jordan, the high growth engineer. You might have known his very high quality articles on LinkedIn about his journey. And thank you, Jordan, for coming in, and huge congratulations on joining Pinterest. And really grateful to have you on the channel. I have been following you since quite some time, and it was an honor to like invite you, and you agreed at the first go. I was like, okay, that is a surprise, and thank you so much. So yeah, why don't
Uh,
you go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit for the people who don't know you yet?
yeah, absolutely, man. And so glad to be here. I always love just chatting, and I mean, actually, surprisingly, like I write my newsletter every week, but my dream actually would be to do something similar to what you're doing, more podcast style. It's just I haven't really found a way to make it work for me yet, but well, yeah, hopefully I can go that direction. And that's why I always accept at the drop of the hat. So. But yeah, so a little bit about me. I'm Jordan. I'm a senior engineer at Pinterest. Have about 6 years of professional software engineering experience. Those first 2 years, I ended up going straight from junior to senior at Gusto through back-to-back promotions, and that's kind of the foundation of the newsletter and how I shared my story to grow my newsletter pretty quickly. And then, yeah, I mean, I've been writing the newsletter. It's at 68,000 subscribers now, and been doing that for the last year and a half. And it's just been a wild journey with crazy opportunities, people to meet, and tons of learning on every single article. I feel like every article that I write, I'm eating like a Mario mushroom, getting a power up and learning more as I write that article and then share it out and then get feedback and all that stuff. So,
For
but
sure,
yeah, I'm,
yeah,
I'm excited to share more about the journey.
yeah, definitely. We'll cover that. So yeah, so let's get started. So when you were seeking Pinterest or the companies of that size, was big tech a big thing for you, or you were just going with the flow and just applying to any open positions available?
For the role at Pinterest, I was actually seeking, yeah, big tech roles. I wanted to try to apply somewhere that would allow me to work remote and also get hired in as a senior because even though I have been senior for, I think it's like been 3 or 4 years now, some companies actually, Meta, for example, they restrict when you can get hired in as a senior, like based on your years of experience even if you've already been a senior, for example. So basically, there's a flexibility there that I need from a company. The other thing was from Pinterest that I was looking for was they were remote, they have a good mission, they try to inspire people, not sort of like I guess detract from your daily life, but more so add to it in various ways. And when I met the team as well, and the manager and the people through the interview process, it was all just you know good positive vibes that I got. So yeah.
Yeah, that is cool. So, okay, if you are like, you have been a senior front end engineer, and I have seen you have got a ton of recommendations on your LinkedIn. So, if you can like tell in a couple of sentences what you work on at Pinterest, that would be amazing.
Yeah, for sure. So I joined the web platform team, and our team at Pinterest, we are essentially like you could think of us as the foundational web engineers that work on things that would affect all the other web engineers. So we're a platform team. We try to run Pinterest fast, and we also try to build in abstractions that other web engineers will use to make their code that they write fast and also make it easy for them to develop their features in
Awesome. And what is the tech stack looking like?
the tech stack is React, mix of server-side rendering and then sort of hybrid approach from there. Cypress, React testing library, Jest, all the modern stuff, pretty much. So it's really nice to work at a company and a team, where we get to invest in these things that affect like so many developers, and then also at the company that invests so heavily in these foundations. Because I mean, the inverse of that is that it's everyone's problem, and when it's everyone's problem, then it's no one's problem, and it just results in you waiting until the very last minute of frustration, where you go and solve some of these common problems or something like that. But no, I think very few people like that. So it's nice that we take a very like proactive approach to these
Yeah,
things.
that is cool, and especially when you said you're working remote, I think that will help you stand out, because you don't have the in-person meetings. You don't get to like hear someone speaking on a problem statement, right? So you have to like sometimes take the lead to proactively solve the problem. So that is cool. Let's move on to the writing journey. So you have produced some of the very high quality articles, and especially the one where how do I manage a whole week. I think the template kind of went viral. You had kind of dissected the whole thing. How do you plan your week as a senior engineer, because you need to plan forwards and stuff like that. So why don't you tell us about your writing journey, how it started, and what was the motivation?
Yeah, so I think I had probably like two different starting points. The first starting point, it happened later in my career at Gusto, once I sort of set up like my credibility after having been there for a couple years and delivered on a good amount of projects. And essentially, I had done like back end and full stack for a good while, but I wanted to start investing in front end a little bit more and learning more about that. I ended up getting a mentor who was super valuable on learning those pieces, but you also can't just 100% rely on your mentor. You need to, take your own path as well and start doing your own learning on top of the things you learn from your mentor. So I started doing that, and as I was coming across like things that I was learning, I was like, wow, there is so many things here that I think other people would also find valuable if they knew about this too, because there's so many opportunities like in our code base. So I started actually writing about those learnings in a channel at Gusto at work. It was called Jordan's Front End Learnings, and eventually through like word of mouth, people join and they would start like sharing their own learnings, or they would respond to some of the things I would write. And then over time, like 50 people ended up joining, and we ended up the front end learning channel rather than Jordan's front end learning channel, because it expanded past that. And then later on, I was sort of exploring like ways that I could learn more outside, my normal job side of things. And this was when I was after having switched from Gusto to Qualified. And so I reflected back on my experience with Jordan's front end learning, and I was like, maybe I can do something similar to what I did there, but just go more broad. Because especially at, the company I was at Qualified, it only had like 20 engineers. And I mean, Gusto, I had more people in that channel than like Qualified had as engineers at the company. So there was not really too much opportunity to do something similar like at the company. So I figured, let's try something new. I made a LinkedIn post, and it did surprisingly well. It did, it got like 30 likes, and I was like, whoa, this is like, 10 times more likes than any other post that I would have made in my Jordan's front end learning channel. And I just kept on doing it. And that's by the way, that's why my first post ever was a front end post. It was like an accessibility alt text one. And then later I transitioned into career growth. So yeah, I kept on posting on LinkedIn, went from like 50 to 80 to 120 to like 200 likes over the course of like couple weeks or so of posting. And I figured I don't want to be beholden to the LinkedIn algorithm gods, so I decided to make a newsletter. I mean, and I also wanted to make posts that were a little bit more nuanced than you can get with LinkedIn posts too. So did that, and when I posted about the newsletter and asked people to sign up, over 100 people joined even before I had my first post. Like I hadn't even written a post, and 100 people had subscribed. So it was like people were anticipating something. So I was like, okay, now I need to deliver on this. So I wrote my first post. I kept it pretty casual, but it was still, I still view it as like one of my favorite posts. It's about like being visible and how to do that effectively, or how to think about it. And yeah, from there, like I just kept on seeing the benefits of writing online, both from like an internal learning perspective, opportunities that come up. Like I've had the chance to like just, I mean, I met so many like staff, engineers, engineering managers, TTOs, all that stuff. Had the opportunity to MC at like Plato Elevate, for example. Um, do my Maven cohort as well. That made like a significant amount of money and was like a great experience too. So it's just like, why, at that point, why would you stop? And so I've just kind of been doing it for a year and a half, just constantly improving each time.
Coming to your Maven course journey, so you said like you kind of started that in the middle of your writing journey, right? So how did you decide that you should do a Maven journey or Maven course?
Mm. Yeah, I think, trying to think back to that experience. I think at the time I had seen a couple of my fellow friends and creators do something similar. And I was thinking, I feel like my journey of going from junior to senior in 2 years, and having mentored a good amount of people, but then also having this newsletter where like I'm reaching tens of thousands of people, but at the same time not really getting that like close one-on-one or like 1 to 20 person interaction. And I just figured it would be something fun to do that would also, I could just explore and see what it was like, and also potentially make some money on the side. It wasn't that big of a deal to me if I made like much money from it. I just wanted to see what it would be like and learn from the experience, but it did happen to do pretty well, which was nice. And yeah, the first cohort ended up getting like, I think, 50, over 50 people. The second one was like around 30 people. And then from there, like it was definitely a good experience, but I put it on pause because it was a lot to do that on top of the full-time job. Like working full-time job, then right afterward, you maybe take a break for an hour or two for dinner, and then your cohort would be for like 2.5 hours up till nearly like 11 to midnight with all the stuff like in there. So yeah, but
I was thinking like, how do you manage so much time? Like you manage a full-time job and then writing, because writing takes a lot of time. You have to craft, you have to read a lot through, or probably think about your experiences and then jot it down, then convert into a final summary. That kind of
yeah.
takes a lot of proofreadings and all stuff. And then on top of that, the Maven instructor. It was kind of hard. So okay.
Oh, that was rough. Yeah. Yeah, that particular period, just with, because it was the art. I think if it wasn't the articles as well that I was doing, it wouldn't have been as bad for sure, because I could then relax more on the weekend, but it was just like no break at all basically. So definitely tough. Definitely tough. You got to find where that balance point is.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. I think the act of juggling is also important. And I remember one of my ex managers was telling me that the act of growing up is to able to efficiently manage a lot of things on the plate at the same time. Like you should be able to context switch from one task to other without losing a lot of productivity. And I think that is the whole process of being a senior engineer as well. So yeah,
Hmm.
it's interesting. Okay, you said about hobbies. Let's deep dive. So what do you do apart from work? When you feel like you want to take a break. So what is the most important thing you want to look forward to?
I actually relax and get energized from watching like content, online. Just sort of, I will literally, I mean, I'll just do it in my chair right now. I'll literally like just lean back like this all the way, and I'll just, watch something. It sometimes can be like learning based, like, how to write better, or it could be like a video from, I don't know, like someone like Rahul Pandey from Taro or something like that. or just current events, things like that. Fun little videos. I watch prank videos sometimes too. um, but then yeah, I also like spend time with my cats. I mean, I have my girlfriend as well, and we spend our nights like pretty much like watching TV, hanging out together, stuff like that, going for walks. Um, I try to go to the gym as well, a good amount, but I'm just lately in general wish I should be doing more, I think.
I think yeah, that's on everyone's bucket list, is to like hit the gym
Yep,
more.
yep,
Cool.
exactly, exactly.
Okay, so you bring a very interesting point. Like you kind of watch a lot of videos and all stuff, and Rahul from Taro is doing an amazing job. Rahul and Alex, I have been following them
Yeah.
too very closely since the inception of the tech career growth. The little Slack channel they had initially before Taro was a thing. There are a ton of people who have been in this space, like creating a lot of articles, but there are very less people who create quality content. But initially, unless you read the article, you'll not know that it's kind of a surface scratching thing, right? So
Mm.
what I do is whenever I come across something interesting on my feed, I kind of save them. But it kind of gets overwhelmed at some point that there are like 15 or 20 articles that I want to read in a week, but I don't get time to watch them or read them or whatever. Have you ever been in that situation?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's already tough for me, and I think it's sort of forced in a way as a creator because, well, if you think about it, there's like there's two sections, right? There's the producer side and there's the consumer side, and I mean, I think in general, it's more valuable to be on like closer to the producer side. Now, there's extremes, right, where you're 100% producer, 0% consumer. But um, even as a producer, that takes a lot of time, like you mentioned, right? The writing the article. I mean, I spend like pretty much all my Saturday on it, but I still need to try to keep up with the articles. Not only that, but like people give shout outs, right? And I feel obligated whenever someone gives a shout out to make sure that I give that attention because I mean, I don't want to ever be the sort of man in the high tower, like just oh yes, yeah, you shout me out or whatever, but you're not going to get anything from me. Like no, I'm like we're chatting now, like you said, like I agreed instantly, to do the podcast. uh, so I always want to be like that, and it's definitely tough. What I would say, practical tip wise, is you definitely do need to pick probably a subset that you feel like you resonate the most with, and also one thing that I've seen a tip from Fran Soto. He's another creator I really enjoy. He recommends to allocate a certain block of time at the end of your week to just read as many of those saved articles that you can, but then once you hit your time block you just stop. So then and then you can either save the ones you didn't get to for the next week, and maybe your list eventually goes to like 1,000 because you just are saving more than you can keep up with in that 2 hour time. But at the very least, you are, allocating a little bit of your time to read some of those, and you don't feel sort of like, oh, when can I read these? It's not a question anymore of that. It's just like I'm going to in this 2 hour block, and I'll get to what I can.
Yeah, that's an interesting advice. Probably, yeah, because there has been a lot of newsletters, and there has been some post where they tag a lot of people, and it's interesting to see all those smart people together. I was like, okay, I should follow each of them, and at that time probably I'm working or my build is happening, something like that. So I'm just scrolling through LinkedIn
Yeah.
and I kind of save that, right? So it's not always on the consuming side, but sometimes on just for the lookout side. So okay, that's an interesting advice. I'll keep up that.
Say one more tip to add there, like practical advice, is use some sort of like email roll up tool like Mailbrew. Mailbrew is the one that I use, and it basically allows you to schedule when you receive sort of like a digest. So you could even set it up so that way, like these newsletters, they come in, but then you only receive, let's say, like your weekly newsletter digest all together at, at that time block that you set up. And then you can even evaluate from there, like, oh, okay, now that I have all these articles from this week, which ones seem the most interesting, rather than sort of like making that, quick judgment. Oh, okay, like like this article just came out, let me read it right, let me stop what I'm doing and like read it right now. Like you don't even have that option to do that. It's free, I
Cool,
think.
interesting. So, how do you manage your time? So, like you said about managing your time as a senior engineer, but how do you manage your writing journey? Like, do you have any plans, or do you plan ahead? You write the topics and
Mm.
then kind of dig deep. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, for the writing stuff, I pretty much always write the article the week of. Some articles they are going through a, let's say, like long-term process if I'm collaborating with someone like a guest post. So I'll just sort of be working on them in the background, and then when they're ready, then I can queue it up for something. But in the meantime, I'm always ready to write something that week, either the day before or a few days before. And I pretty much have my whole Saturday blocked off, to do the writing process, and then I'll re-edit Sunday morning. So that way, you could just it just helps to always sleep on something. This is actually a pro tip too. Like I learned from in like you can use at work as well, like your doc writing process, like before sending it out to your team, just wait one day, come back the next morning, and then review it yourself and see if it still makes sense or if there's any way you can improve it, and then send it out to your team. So same way with writing the article, pretty much the process.
How do you decide the topics, what to write on? Like, do you have some kind of inspiration, or how does that process begin?
Yeah, two different things. So first thing is that I save. Actually, I guess maybe three things. Anything that comes up, I like just in my head. I could be like out on a walk, or I could be just petting my cat, who knows? And like an idea just randomly pops in, right? And I will then save it to my to-do-ist. I have a folder, it's called newsletter ideas. And right now I have like over 50 in there. So I basically have like 50 weeks of ideas like stacked away. So then once I have that, right, that's sort of the like intake process, let's say, right? Um, Once I have that, when it hits the day that I need to write the newsletter, I basically first check, is there anything that is like really top of mind for me that maybe I realized, I came to some sort of realization like within the last week or two, and I just really want to get it out there. If that's the case, then I will write about that, because that is always going to be the easiest thing for me to write about, because it's like top of mind right now. I can think to some examples and some stories, and it's just gonna feel more natural to write about. And then if that's not the case, then I will pull from my idea bank. So I basically, the idea bank is growing faster than I can pull from it, because it's every week is an article, and I might throw in two every week, or even if I do, I might not even use it that week or something like that. So I pretty much never run out of anything.
What do you think the whole vision of your high growth engineer stack looking like the Substack? Where do you like take it forwards, like probably a couple of years down the line?
Mm, mm. Yeah, I mean, my big hope is really to, at least for now, to just continue doing what I'm doing, but grow the paid subscriber base. I want to hit 1,000 paid subscribers and 100,000 free subscribers. Just sort of like honestly, it's a little bit of an internal vanity number, like like just hitting those ones and zeros, basically. Just I'm feeling good, and I mean, it's always nice to have a goal to work toward. uh, I mean, I like what I'm doing with my job, and I know that my job fuels a lot of the inspiration, for the articles. So I have no plans of like quitting my job or anything like that. And I swear I'm not just saying that in like for if future people are watching. This is the honest truth. um, so yeah, pretty much just keep growing there, keep doing what I'm doing, and I mean, a while ago, my revenue goal was basically to have my newsletter cover my mortgage, or I guess like my monthly mortgage payment. So I'm almost there. We're we're working on it, and I think I will get there with the thousand paid subscribers. Which I think it's just a good feeling to know that you can sort of keep doing what you're doing, and your fixed expenses are pretty much covered by your side hustle. So that's what I'm going for right now.
Amazing. And all the best on that. I think that's a pretty small number you're targeting. You'll go much more than that. So cool. Okay, what are your views on mentorship? Like, should a person have mentors, multiple mentors, and how do they find someone?
Yeah, the I definitely recommend to have more than one mentor. There have been cases where I have been, I mean, I think with every mentor that I have, I'm always satisfied on some axes of that mentorship and dissatisfied on other axes. Let's say, for example, if you learn a lot from one person about technical skills, but they don't really seem that great with like managing upwards or something like that. Like it's pretty rare to have a single mentor that's going to know everything. And that's fine, like so that's why I generally recommend getting more than one. If you are currently working full time, that is the best time to have a mentor, and it's the also the easiest way to be able to get a mentor too. So I would recommend that you either find someone that you look up to and you would like to become them, let's say like in a couple years, and you can basically go to them and you just message them. Like people love to feel good about themselves. People love to help other people. So if you're able to like show that in your message, that that's what they're going to get. Like, hey, I really look up to you as this, like as a technical expert in this area, and I would love to grow in that area as well. Would you be open to having a chat once a week, and I can ask you some questions, and you can help me get to where you are, like that type of thing. I have never had anyone say no to like some sort of request like that. So yeah, try to frame it like that. And then if you're really unsure, then you can also ask your manager and say like, hey, I would love a mentor, just either generally or to grow in a specific skill. The easiest way to get a mentor, or I guess the biggest tip when getting a mentor, is to make sure you have a clear goal, because I definitely get requests sometimes where people will like, hey, will you be my mentor? And it's like, mentor for what? Like, what do what do you want? Do you just want to be able to say you have a mentor, or do you want like some, like, what are you trying to do? So make sure you make that clear, because yeah, that's what's going to help the mentor know whether they're the right person for it, and be able to help you actually get that goal achieved. So yeah,
Awesome.
that's my advice.
Okay, so yeah, you talked about a very important part. I think having different mentors is something very important because not everyone can be great at all the areas, and that is when you kind of collect different, what do you say, different stones from different places, right?
Yeah.
So infinity stones is what I was talking about. So cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good
Okay.
analogy.
Coming back to your front end role, we'll talk a little bit about that. So, you have been working in this area, kind of worked initially with backend and then switched to front end, and have been there quite some time. So, how do you upskill yourself, especially in the tech side?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I do have an article on it. I follow some of the advice in there, and I wish I followed more of the advice in there, because it yeah, it was a collaboration with Ben Holmes. He's a YouTube creator, and he works on an open source framework called Astro as well. And he's like super young, I think maybe 25, 26, something like that. And his technical skills are just like off the charts. He just knows so much stuff. And I mean, one of the things that he does is he tries to understand how things work from the ground up. So, like one of the examples I think he gave was building an app with, you know, without a framework. So a lot of people, they start like with frameworks nowadays, right? Like Next.js or React or something like that. But instead, he just did it with like vanilla CSS, vanilla JavaScript, vanilla HTML, and then really try to understand how some of the things that the framework actually uses under the hood. So that way, when he does use these high level tools, he knows how to use them much more effectively. So that's one way. The other way I would say is to keep up with the trends. For me, when I was learning front end, what I did was subscribe to like 50 different front end newsletters. It was definitely too much for sure. But I mean, when you're totally new, it kind of just helps to have that intake and then like filter down from there and see like, okay, what is the stuff that I learned the most from? And then, cut out the things that I don't. And then for me, I personally like courses, but I know everyone is going to have like a different learning style. The thing that I would just recommend to avoid is um, just sort of reading passively and never doing anything, because that's the trap that a lot of people fall into. And I know I fall into it too. Like I'm super scared sometimes, when learning a new skill, to like actually just dive in. But if you're able to face that fear and just dive in, then I know it's going to be much better for you. Of course, it's easier said than done, because I know that I am someone too that will fall for that trap sometimes and just be stuck in tutorial hell. But yeah, that's what I would generally recommend.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting point. It's like when you start something new, it's always very fascinating, right? And you always get into the rabbit hole, like digging deeper, getting in there just by learning and don't actually implementing things. But when you start implementing, like probably mid of the tutorial, you're like, oh, I don't know that, I don't know this. Okay, let me rewind the video and watch that, because you kind of like watch it like a movie, sort of that, right? So
Yeah.
very interesting. Okay, so what is your preference between side projects or open source contribution?
I mean, for me, like if I have a full-time job, then I will do neither of those, because I think that if you have additional time on your hands and you have a good code base at your fingertips, or a code base where you can make an impact, then you can kill two birds with one stone, because you can get the same value that you're looking for out of side projects, which is, I don't know, some sort of knowledge in some area or something like that. And you can just do that same thing, but maybe as a extracurricular outside of the scope of your current set of responsibilities thing at work. That's what I personally did. I mean, there were times at Gusto, where I would finish all my stuff during the day, and then at night I would just be like, I mean, I'm like literally a single guy in San Francisco in a studio apartment, like living by myself, very little to do. So I was just like, okay, well, this other area of the code seemed kind of interesting. Let me just see, what's over there, and if I can learn a little bit about, what's going on there, let's say. So I would do that, and that would be my way of learning different things. But it also leveled me up, when I would have my normal interactions at the company and know about all these different areas. With that said, if you don't have a job, I mean, that is a bit harder. And I would say probably contributing to open source might be better if you can make like decent contributions to a well-known project. Maybe
Not
have a
changing the
mix of
README
both.
files.
Yes, yeah, not like README updates or something. Yeah, like something like that. Yeah. And yeah, if you do a side project, then make it something like live and cool. and not
Pretty
something.
interesting.
Uh,
Okay, before wrapping up our podcast, I have the very important question. So you have written a lot about being from like going from junior engineers to senior engineers. So if I just tell you to tell us 3 points out of all those you have written, all those you have experienced, what are the three most important things that you might advise to a junior engineer?
okay, yeah. So I would say, let's see. Um, the first one that comes to mind is don't try to go and be the hero. Be someone that is ingrained with the team, understand the team's goals, and figure out ways to make people like the other, other your teammates lives easier and add value to whatever, the team's mission is. A lot of times I would do things, let's say like go and refactor some piece of code or something like that just because I wanted to. And I thought that it was going to be like, oh, yeah, Jordan, I mean, that's amazing. And I mean, people would say that like externally, but ultimately, if you do that too much and it's not even being asked of you, then things like that can end up being almost like a detriment. Because if it's, let's say it's some piece of code that like isn't even touched that much at all, and now it's just an additional thing that your teammate needs to review on top of all your other stuff that you should have been doing, or they that they should be doing. So overall, try to be someone that is just helping the team move faster and taking, work off of your team's plate rather than adding it on. The second thing would be being visible. So, don't be someone that like is in some sort of silo and thinks that, oh, if I just do my work, then my work is going to speak for itself. That is rarely the case. I would say that a lot of times the misconception is that people think being visible is about bragging, and it's not about that at all. In fact, by doing the things that make you visible in the right way, you are actually adding value to the team because you're giving people updates so that way they can know what's going on and they can know like if something breaks, oh, okay, it has to do with this. They can learn from the things that you're sharing, and your manager is able to answer questions about your work if it ever comes up. Sometimes they get asked by other teams or things like that. So there's plenty more reasons as well. The third tip that I would say is have recurring career growth and feedback conversations with your manager outside of your normal one-on-one. A lot of people just set up, their regular scheduled one-on-one, and is just not enough time to talk about the things that you need to talk about from a career growth and feedback perspective, just from a 30-minute one-on-one each week, especially with other updates that you might need to give them or things that you want to talk about, all that stuff. It's better to have a dedicated session for it. And so I recommend scheduling a separate one that's at least 45 minutes, 45 minutes to 1 hour every 4 to 6 weeks. And basically use it as an opportunity to ask what you should continue doing, what you should start doing, and what you should stop doing, or ask for feedback specifically on, things that you might have received feedback on before and you tried to action on, or on specific things that you just already know, like, hey, I would love your thoughts, on this. And that's going to help you by getting that recurring feedback faster than your performance review, every quarter, or even sometimes it's every 2 quarters, right? uh, then you're going to do all the things that you need to make sure that when you do get that quarterly feedback, that it comes in good and you're not surprised by it.
Oh, that's an awesome advice. So, people who have been watching all of its or reading all of the high growth engineer stuff, this is kind of crux what he talks about. And if you really want to know, I'll attach all of Jordan's handles and his newsletter in the description of the video, as well as in my social media channels. I think there are some great reads, especially the one where he describes his whole journey, and in special details about like going into depth of technical articles as well, and especially are famous for the template thing. So do give it a read. Do check out all of his articles, pretty high quality. And I'll let this conversation end for now. We'll continue forward with much more interesting conversation sometime in the future. So thank you so much, Jordan, for being here, and I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you so much, Hitesh. It was an awesome interview. It was great chatting with you, man. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.